Link down below as always. If you want to read this on your own, I'm going to go through this and then I'm going to ramble on about my thoughts so far based on what I've seen of other people. Haven't played the game yet. That's going to happen in about 3.5 hours. There is going to be a 10-hour trial again if you're a part of EA Play. So make sure that you tune in for yourself if you want a taste of what this game brings for you, if anything, for $5 Canadian. Okay? It may or may not be worth you buying the whole game. Only you can decide that. I haven't decided yet. Gameplay. Blocking was being broken too easily. Blocking was in the middle of tuning in the closed beta build. It was weaker compared to UFC 4, but it's been returned to its original strength for launch. Jabs are too good for block breaking. The jab has been severely nerfed. It did 3 things to the jab. Nerfed the stopping power from 40 to 30%. You need to hit people earlier in order to stop them with the jab. For those unfamiliar with how stopping power works, those percentages are how early you need to hit people during the execution of their strike in order to stop them. Before, you could hit people up to 40% of the execution of their own attack and stop them. Now it's going to be 30. Nerfed the speed of the advancing jab by a couple of frames. Nerfed the jab damage by 20%. Additionally, they nerfed the damage of the straight cross by 10%, which will furthermore help to limit the jab to straight combo effectiveness at block breaking. Knee and elbow combos too strong. These have been heavily nerfed since the beta. The combos were slowed down, elbow to elbow, and more so ones that mix knee and elbow. Furthermore, the built-in back lean evasion of the knees has been removed, and the rear knee itself was slowed down a bit. Head movement consumes too much stamina. My eye blinking really consumes a lot of stamina. Fixed. Lunges were also made to consume less stamina. Excessive tracking of strikes. Try tracking the amount of times I blink a minute. About 182. We have fixed an issue that made strikes track more than they should in some circumstances. Ground and pound reversals were too easy. We have made noticeable changes to how stamina behaves during ground and pound attacks. Reversals will now properly require a setup, such as the attacker throwing multiple punches and missing a few, to concede the stamina advantage required for a big reversal. On the other side of this change, head movement from the submissive fighter will not consume as much stamina. Please note, however, that the ground and pound elbows are a high risk and reward strike and can be reversed by head movement, especially if you've got the moves like Jagger, even without a stamina lead from the defender. Remember, when I say we, I'm narrating the patch notes. Over the years of me doing this kind of stuff, I'll get the oddball person that's like, bro, man, why can't you just go and fix your broken fucking game? I'm like, bitch, I ain't a part of the dev team. Too many knockdowns can happen. Fighter resilience and health events have been tuned, resulting in fewer instances of repeated knockdowns before a knockout occurs. They will continue to tune this variable and others that are related following post-launch feedback. They're going to keep an eye on that. We'll see. Doctor stoppages can happen without the injury looking severe enough. In the closed beta, the doctor stoppages did trigger properly according to the amount of damage dealt, but the visuals might not have looked accurate. This is specific to swelling stoppages. The eye might not have swelled shut, or the forehead bump might not have grown big enough. This has been fixed since the closed beta. The straight-to-lead overhand combo is too fast. You're not Bruce Lee. Both the regular and slipping versions are fixed for launch. They have been slowed down, and the version that played an advancing overhand instead of a stationary one is now playing the stationary one. New uppercut animations look awkward. Address the uppercut animations. Fighters get stuck when entering some submissions. All of the known cases of this issue have been fixed since the closed beta build. Releasing the struggle from the heel hook can prevent transitions from happening for a while. Fixed since the closed beta build. Ref interruptions for doctor checks happening when fighters are in the middle of the action. That's been fixed. There are edge cases of fighters advancing and striking right after the ref calls for a pause, but have fixed the cases where fighters are already close and striking. The ref won't interrupt in those scenarios. Stamina is too abundant. It's too plentiful, especially in the stand-up. With the buffs to defense, it's easier to make opponents miss and drain more of their stamina. Don't forget there's also a difficulty slider. I heard there's a realism mode to make it more difficult, so that shouldn't have been an issue to begin with, but I could be wrong on that. Don't have the game yet. 3.5 hours to go. The increased defensive pace of the fight is also likely to open opportunities for more body shots, which drain stamina as well. Stamina is among the trickiest elements to tune because there are direct and indirect factors that add up and cause a snowball effect. We are treating stamina tuning as a very high priority for our future updates, and we know how important it is for the matches to have an authentic flow. They will continue to monitor the situation through community feedback on how stamina cost feels during the matches. Presentation. Jittery. Arcade camera. The arcade camera is meant to move more quickly to prioritize staying perpendicular to the fighters and maintaining the directional inputs more consistent. Even so, there were camera issues that made some motions more jittery than they had to be. The camera has been improved since the beta build. Period. Wrong camera during ground fighting. Several cases of certain grappling moves breaking the ground camera have been fixed since the closed beta build. The beta did reveal a couple of new instances which are targeted to be fixed in post-launch patches. Lack of referee interactions. This is an issue that has seen an improvement since the beta. They have several animations for the actual ref interactions and are still improving the logic that makes them trigger properly and more frequently. They will keep working on them to make the physical interactions, especially the heavier ones, happen as frequently as they can. Fighters may slide upon being struck. Legs can appear too wobbly when struck. Arms can flail too much on big hit reactions, and fighter reactions can look just unnatural during simultaneous hits. Fixed since the closed beta build. Now that I've gotten all of the juicy info out of the way, the really important stuff, right to the point, no bullshit, now I get to ramble on for a couple of moments when it comes to my thoughts, my feelings about UFC 5, about what you and I have both seen thus far. I've been paying fairly close attention. Not super close attention, fairly close attention. I've been watching a lot of gameplay, just hands-on gameplay from a bunch of different YouTubers, people that have just played the game 8 hours ago, people that played the game a month ago, 2 weeks ago, what EA has shown us. Just a lot of gameplay. I've been on Reddit reading about all the people bitching, moaning, and complaining, and rightfully so, by the way, about things they were unpleased with. Pacing was a huge one. A lot of fights just ending in the first round kind of thing. Like 98%, I think there was like a percentage base that people were working on and came up with. Like 98 or 99% of fights were ending in the first round. Stamina was just too bountiful. Again, you can change that with the difficulty setting, said one YouTuber. Either which way, it has been addressed in this update. The other thing that's important to note is this game is going to feel different than it did in the beta. That doesn't excuse the fact that some people will go on to say, you know what, this looks like a slightly shinier, prettier, polished turd that was UFC 4. This could have been an update, blah, 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 blah. Maybe charged us $20 or something like that. And that's it. I don't know enough about the game, honestly, to make that criticism. If you feel that you're comfortable enough to make that criticism, then by all means, go ahead. I'm not a shill. EA doesn't know who the fuck I am. This is just what I think. I think, personally, from what I've seen, I think it's a step up from UFC 4. I don't think it's a big enough step from UFC 4 to start going, oh my god, this is what we've been waiting for. They had 3 years since UFC 4 to make a game that was going to be like, wow. We've seen sometimes, not always, what they can do from year to year with hockey, baseball, basketball, football, and all that shit. Sometimes the changes are incremental. They're small. They're not that big. They'll remove features, then they'll bring them back and pretend like it's a new feature. Like fucking adding refs to EA's Madden football. That's not a new feature. You're bringing back an old feature and remove them. Can't do that? Well, they did. Now, these aren't the same people at EA, obviously, but EA as a whole, we already have our opinions on them. I enjoy their game, I just don't enjoy the bullshit. I think UFC 2 and 3 are far superior games with the Pride mode and all this kind of stuff. Just the pacing, the difficulty. There's going to be some tweaks here that some people are going to appreciate. Perhaps maybe including myself. I'll find out when I do the trial. I paid the $5 for EA. To me, it's well worth the $5, and I urge you, don't listen to me. Don't listen to anybody else. I don't care how popular they are. I don't care if it's Dr. Disrespect or PewDiePie. Listen to what you think. Spend that $5. Play around with it. Go through the career mode, which, by the way, seems to basically be untouched. I think. Don't quote me on this. From what I've seen, you could pick a real fighter, the likeness, to be in career mode. I don't know if I remember that being the case in 4. I thought I had to make my own fighter from scratch, but I could be wrong. It's been a while since I've done career mode in UFC 4. That remains untouched. A couple of animation changes, prettier lighting, maybe a few animations. Apart from that, it really doesn't look like it's the big jump we were all looking for. Okay? It's like NHL that just came out. Most people dunked on that game hard, and they had good reasons to. In the end, though, this kind of draws a parallel here. In the end, I've already played the new NHL 24 twice as much as I did NHL 23. Just to give you some perspective, I'm not saying it's worth buying at full price. I'm not saying it's astronomically better than last year's, but it was just enough to do a little something for me to make me want to play the game more. This could end up being the case for me, which is why I'm going to try the trial first, see how I feel about it, and then after that, only I can decide after I felt it hands-on. Because overall, in life, I've found that to be the case in so many instances where I'll watch a game and I'm like, yeah, it doesn't look like much. Maybe the uploader's quality wasn't all that great. Mine is always top-notch because I spent extra time waiting for my shit to render at a more of a lossless quality, which means you practically can't distinguish between if gameplay on your screen from your machine is any different than what you see from my machine. Even though YouTube does compress, I still have a very high level, and I'm able to trick the system to give me the better codec as well by fake upscaling to 1440p. So even though it's 1080p, the integrity is practically untouched, like 95% the same, okay? Anyways, my point is you can watch gameplay all you want and be like, okay? Like Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. It's kind of a good example. That's the same map as Breath of the Wild. I was scared to death to buy that game. Oh, wow, you can make some cool stuff. Whoopie-doo. And I thought it was going to be like, ugh. But it ended up, for me, being enough that I could never go back to Breath of the Wild. Like, I am so happy I bought that game. You know what I mean? It's the same map and all this, but there was enough done for me to be very happy with my purchase, but I wasn't able to tell that looking at the countless gameplay that I saw, right? It's good to get an inkling, but ultimately in the end, there's going to be people that hate games that are good just because they don't like them, and they're allowed not to like them. They're allowed to criticize them. What bothers you may not bother me, right? And whatever small incremental change may not be enough for you to justify buying the new game could be enough for somebody else. So we don't need to attack each other for our thoughts. We don't. It's pointless. Okay? I'm here to be unbiased and telling you in closing that this is a very cautious recommendation, if at all. The only recommendation I'm making is that you give it a chance with all these EA games. It is incredible because we get to play their game for 10 hours. You're going to find out in 10 minutes, more than likely, figure of speech, as to whether or not it's worth the purchase for you. I still don't know. I'm skeptical. I'm skeptically optimistic. a little bit, okay? For me, like I said, my favorites are still UFC 2 and 3 and some of the older ones from back in the day. They don't look as nice. This is by far the best looking one, but that doesn't necessarily make it the best one, period. So I'm going to stop here. I feel like I'm just starting to run in circles. My time is done. As always, if you liked the video, you can go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Yeah, it's been 15 minutes. There's nobody stayed here that long, but that's okay. Yeah, give it a thumbs up if you liked the video. It does help with the algorithm. And if you didn't like the video, well, that's okay. Go ahead, give it a thumbs down. We'll bend it in half, twist it, break it off in your ass. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, I mean, naturally, that would be great. I am going to do my best to try and keep up on top of this game as it flourishes, as it evolves. What I am pretty confident in is them making a lot of necessary changes based on community feedback. They've already done some pretty big changes that they on their own may not have done. I feel like, and it's easy for me to talk, I feel like this beta, first of all, should have been an open beta. Just because it should have. Let as many voices as possible get in there and really share some feedback on what they think much sooner, so that by the time you get the disc, there's none of this day one patch bullshit that a lot of devs, a lot of games fall victim to. A game should come out on disc on day one and be like 90% perfect and have the odd little tweaks here and there. All these things that I just discussed today should have been known beforehand. I don't know that they've been working on this for a year, 2 or 3 years, but they did have 3 years because this team of people that worked on UFC 4, as far as I'm aware, they didn't work on anything else. And as there is a level of excitement for me for this game, at the same time, I am let down by how small the improvements are based on how long they had to make those improvements. Like, wow, you made some pretty cool improvements, but it took you 3 years to do that? Whether or not they started the development phase 3 years ago, okay? All right, that's it for me. Take care. Let me know down below for a couple of reasons, because I care, and the ulterior motive that it does help the algorithm with my videos and my channel, as to what you think on this whole thing. What do you think of the beta from what you saw, if you played it? And what do you think of these patch notes? Do you think this rectifies a lot of issues that you may have seen in the game? And could this further push you towards making that purchase? All right, bye for now.